There's a new study out in Perspectives on Politics by Martin Gillens of Princeton University and Benjamin Page of Northwestern University. And what they did is they looked at a data set of 1,779 policy issues between 1981 and 2002 and matched them up against surveys of public opinion broken down by income as well as support from interest groups. And the conclusion they found, shocking to nobody, is that the rich and the special interests and the corporations and the money controls our politics, and more specifically, the laws that we get and the policies that are implemented. Quote, opposition from the wealthy means that a particular policy is only adopted about 18% of the time. But when they support it, it gets adopted 45% of the time. Now, furthermore, quote, the impact could also be even higher than their findings, as there may be policy differences among those who they count as wealthy, which means that the imprecision in their measure is likely to produce underestimates of the impact of economic elites on policy making. That's a very important point. So let me explain what all this means a little bit. What they're saying is only 18% of the time when the rich are against something does it get through. So there are some fringe examples, take, some social safety net programs. So back in the day with the war on poverty, LBJ, you could even go back as far as FDR and some of the New Deal programs. Well, the rich disagreed with those, but they were put into place. So those good things that the rich don't like, but the rest of the American people do like, only 18% of the time those actually get through. And that I might think even be a little bit high. And then when they say when the wealthy support it, it's a 45% chance of getting through. But they're adding the massive caveat that there could be competing interests between rich people, so that number is likely higher. So in other words, you might have, the Koch brothers lobbying against something like Obamacare. So you could say, well, the rich didn't get what they want there because Obamacare got passed, right? But on the flip side of that, you have the insurance companies, the health insurance companies that wanted Obamacare passed. Why? Because you're giving them this massive market. You're mandating that everybody in the country buys private health insurance. So they like that. So you have two competing interests. So how do you quantify that as the problem? And what they're saying is, even when you're using conservative measures that would underestimate, you see the outcome. You see that the rich and the special interests are the ones who get their way, and the rest of us don't get our way. Also, research from the University of Connecticut also found that the Senate is only responsive to the policy preferences of the rich. Quote, one clear example of this problem was the across-the-board automatic spending cuts of the sequester, which gutted things like cancer clinics, for example, but it responded quickly to the needs of business-class travelers who faced long airport lines during Federal Aviation Administration furloughs. So remember that. That was incredible to watch. What we had is a situation where the sequester cuts devastated low-income families, devastated the social safety net. They actually had to close some cancer clinics as a result of this. But when Congress was responding to the sequester cuts, what did they rush to fix first? The Federal Aviation Administration furloughs, because that was making some planes late. And it was a lot of business people who lobby Congress who were complaining about that. They were like, fuck, I'm late to my business meeting in Shanghai. What the fuck's going on here? This is messed up, man. Fix this. And Congress was like, oh, yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. And they ran and they fixed that. But the cancer clinics were still shutting, but they didn't care. Why? Because, again, they're responsive to the rich. They're not responsive to us. And I give examples of this all day, man. How about background checks for gun purchases? 91% of the American people support that. We didn't get that as policy. Why? Because the NRA and the gun manufacturers, this is the special interest group that pays the politicians because they got their way. They're the people paying to get the policy that they want, and the rest of us, when we disagree, we're just totally disregarded, even though it's 91% of us. The minimum wage, 80% of the American people are in favor of raising the minimum wage, including a majority of Republicans. Pretty much everybody, man. But why haven't we gotten it? Because the special interest groups, the corporations, are paying the politicians, so they're listening to the special interest. They're not listening to us. The war in Afghanistan is another example. Only 17% of the American public is in favor of it, but they're trying to continue to keep us there. They're still trying to get an agreement to keep us there another 10 years. Why? Because it's the military-industrial complex. The defense companies, the defense contractors who are paying the politicians, so they're doing their bidding, not our bidding. How about, how the American public doesn't want cuts to Social Security and Medicare? 60% is the number. They say never cut it under any circumstances. What are they trying to do right now? The Republicans, 100% of them are in favor of cutting it, and a lot of the establishment Democrats are in favor of cutting it. Thankfully, it hasn't gotten through yet, but they're trying. So these are all examples of how our government is representing the rich and the powerful and the corporations and the special interests, and they leave us out to dry.